Hi there, you are listening to the Guitar Speak podcast. My name is Matt Wakeling and this is the show I produce in Sydney, Australia, where I speak to leading guitarists and guitar figures from all around the world. Thank you so much for joining me. Now today I speak to Christian Nesmith, fantastic LA-based musician who's forged an incredible career as a guitarist and a producer. As a session musician, he has played or composed on dozens of commercials, including ones for Budweiser, Chevrolet, Burger King, ESPN, Mercedes-Benz, Nissan, Starbucks, amongst many others. As a touring musician, he's worked with artists such as Air Supply, Debbie Peterson of the Bangles, Doug Pinnick of King's X, Ty Tabor of King's X, and many more. With his wife, Circe Link, he's produced over 10 original albums featuring Americana rock stylings. Really great stuff. And Christian's also produced a number of solo albums, the most recent of which, The Other Side, we talk a bit about in this interview, which is a fantastic mix of clever power pop and massive and skillful guitar playing. Now, Christian's surname might be a little familiar, Nesmith. Christian's dad is Mike Nesmith of the Monkees, and it is this association which recently finds Christian touring with his dad, and there's a bunch of dates coming up in Australia and New Zealand which brought up the opportunity for me to have Christian on the podcast. It was a great conversation, fantastic guy and an incredible musician. So let's get straight to the interview right now. Christian Nesmith, welcome to the Guitar Speak podcast.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for your time. We really appreciate it. Now, Christian, you've developed a career over many years as a guitarist and a producer, songwriter and arranger. But what's bringing you to Australia, and hence our conversation, is touring with the Monkees. And anyone who's familiar with your surname will know that your dad is Mike Nesmith. Tell me about
dear old dad right there.
Tell me about the Monkees gig, because this is a relatively recent thing for you.
It's a relatively what?
Recent, as in you've been doing the Monkees thing maybe the last 7 years or so.
Yeah. The amount of different legs that we've done, it doesn't feel that recent. It actually feels like we've been doing them for a while. But after Davey passed, my dad felt it was a good thing to get back in there and, help keep the name alive, do some shows. And I think the fans really wanted to see it. But one of the things he wanted was for me to join in. And it was really nice because that actually was the first time that he and I ever stood on the stage together. I mean, there wasn't even any like club gigs or jamming around. It was the very first time, which was really, really fun.
Wow.
To be able to have that experience with your dad.
Yeah, cool. And what does that mean? So for your current tour, you're coming out. So it's the Mike and Mickey show. So Mike Nesmith, of course.
It's true. Yeah, Mike and Mickey now, because Peter has now passed just recently.
Yeah.
And, that's very sad. But both my dad, who we call Nez, both Nez and Mickey are out there really wanting to keep this music alive, and I think the fans really want to hear it. So we actually, our last leg, we were doing some of the biggest shows we've done so far since Nez has been back in the Monkees seat, doing like half stadiums and stuff. It was really cool. So we're bringing it down there and doing 3 dates in New Zealand, and then I believe 5 or 6 in Australia. And we're playing in Sydney. We're actually playing the Opera House, which I've never played before. So I'm very excited.
Yeah, fantastic. Oh, you'll have a great time. It's a fantastic venue, and it's a beautiful location. So I think that'll be a fantastic show.
Well, we've all seen the beautiful tourist pictures of the great opera house right there on the water, and but come on, if you've seen Finding Nemo, you know what you're talking about, right?
Yeah, it's pretty much like that. It is. I'm a local. This is my hometown, and I'm still blown away every time I get on the harbour or get to the harbour. It's really a beautiful thing. But the room itself is really cool too. So it's a great venue. So
Cannot wait.
I believe the band gets expanded a little, so you've got a pedal steel player this time around.
That's right, a guy named Pete Finney, who's amazing, and it made more sense because Peter's not in there, and because Davey's not in there, and we're not doing as many of those songs. It made sense to sort of dig into some of more of my dad's tunes, and they have a large country flavor, and so it made a lot of sense to bring a pedal steel out there. And my dad has also been doing First National Band. Actually, we call it First National Band Redux rather than Second National Band because we're getting some of those original solo stuff out and about. We're actually going to be doing some shows later this year.
That's great.
And the guy who was originally in the First National Band was a man named Red Rhodes, who was a true savant. He just complete wacko genius on the pedal steel. And he was a huge inspiration for Pete Finney. So to have sort of that flavor and that spirit amongst the music is a real treat. And I actually stand right next to Pete on stage, so it's wonderful to watch and hear him.
That's fantastic. That is very, very cool. Now, what guitars do you bring out on the road when you do on the tour?
For the Monkees, it's pretty well. I was going to say it's pretty meat and potatoes, but it isn't. My main guitar is just sort of a straight American telly, no frills, blonde, black pickguard, but I also play a G&L ASAT, which I use for slide, and a couple of acoustics. One is in open tuning, and then I've got my Epiphone double neck, which I'm using primarily for the 12-string, because there's a lot of 12-string in that Monkees music and that 60s music, and my dad's a big 12-string head as well. And I love that guitar, but the thing about the Epiphone is that you've got to put better pickups in it, which I have. I put Seymour Duncan 59s in it, and I'll tell you, I will put that thing up against any Gibson double neck out there, and it cost me $3,700 less. So, if anybody's thinking about picking up a double neck, don't get the Gibson. Definitely get the Epiphone and soup it up.
Yeah, wow, cool, very cool.
Yeah, it plays great. And the thing about the Epiphone, as opposed to the Gibson, is that it's actually a 3-switch. So you have a pickup selector for both necks, and you have a neck selector as well, which really makes it cool. So you can already have one guitar. I mean, if you have to go from neck pickup to bridge pickup and switch necks, that's 2 flips, but you can have one guy already prepared to go. And it just plays so good. I was so surprised for a guitar that's under $1,000. It's amazing. And I must admit that guitar was a gift. It was given to me by my lovely wife, Circe, and wife and musical partner, Circe Link. So, who will also be out there on the Monkees tour.
Oh, excellent!
So, singing background.
That's very cool. Yeah, I'd love to. We'll definitely have to talk about the albums you do with Circe as well. That's really cool. The 12 strings actually become a bit of a big thing in your career as well.
I don't know about a big thing, but I've always loved it.
Mm-hmm.
There was a 12-string around my house growing up, and I think it may have been the second guitar I ever owned was an acoustic 12-string.
Okay.
And I just love that big jangle. My dad turned me on to Leo Kottke, Kottke, for anybody who doesn't know.
Uh-huh.
And he and for people who don't know, he's just a crazy wizard of finger picking, drop tuning, slide acoustic 12-string, and I just thought his sound was so amazing. His album "My Feet Are Smiling," which is a live record, it sounds like there's 30 guitars going at one time. It's amazing sounding, and I was really enamored with that. So the 12 string has always been wonderful, I enjoy applying the electric 12 string to lots of different things. I do a Zeppelin thing for fun on the weekends. It was heavily featured on Circe and I's last record, and as I say, I'm using it in the Monkees and First National Band as well. So yeah, it's there, and I love it.
Excellent. When you're touring, again in the Monkees guitar seat, what do you bring in terms of effects or amps?
Well, that's interesting you ask that, because I feel like I'm at the point of changing over. I've always been sort of a multi-effects guy, and so I want to have as many different tones available to me at the touch of a button, and not really in patches or preset, but more kind of laid out in a linear, massive stomp box mode. Mm-hmm. So right now for pedals, I'm playing a Line 6 Helix, which I have set up, which I'm using in edit mode. I have 6 stomp boxes there. Then I also have Line 6 HX Effects, which adds another 6, which I'm using in a loop, and mostly for my delays and stuff that's after the virtual amp. And then I've also got a Strymon Mobius in the system, because it's got, those guys make hands down the best time-based effects that I've ever heard. They're just so beautiful and so smooth. And so I have the Mobius, which does my Leslie and vibrato effects. And then I'm running stereo, and I have been running a couple of, yet again, Line 6 DT25s, but I've just been hitting the power amp. For the last couple of days, and I hope that your listeners pay attention to this, because I have been hanging out with my longtime friends, King's X. I don't know if you know this band.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
But yeah, well, anybody who knows, and they've been really close, dear friends of mine. I've toured with Doug. I played on Ty's record. My old band opened for them. I actually shot 3 videos for them. I've been really involved with those guys, and they've been good mates for a long time. And they're here in LA right now recording their brand new record, which I think this is the first one in a decade.
Wow, that's very cool.
Yeah. Yeah, and so I've been hanging around the studio, and Ty Tabor, the guitar player, he pointed something out to me that I looked at in total disbelief, and that is the Vox MV50. And for anybody who doesn't know what this thing is, it's a tube 50-watt amp that's the size of a stomp box.
Yeah, I've seen this.
I kid you not.
The Class D power section, and
that's it.
The tube in the front.
That's it. That's the guy.
Nice.
And blown away. He's using it all over the record.
Really?
I mean, among a lot of different other different stuff. But I've been privy to hearing a couple of roughs and things, and this thing just sounded amazing, and they're like $200.
Yeah, it's crazy.
So I weigh a pound, and I just started rethinking my whole approach, because they make a clean, an AC, so it's sort of like an AC30 voiced, and what they call rock. But I think I'm going to go for the clean, and I'm going to go for a wet, dry, wet. I'm going to get 3 of them, which will all fit on a pedal board, and use 3 small cabinets, and I'll be able to do this really great wet, dry, wet setup with just this massive power, and it weighs about 5 pounds. It's like, who can beat that? So I'm very excited to go check that out. I haven't made the move with that yet, but but I've been up very late the last few nights doing my research. I'm fairly sure that's my new way of amplification.
Yeah, cool. Very cool. It's amazing what well, like you say, the Epiphone, a $1,000 guitar.
Yeah.
You know, the new Vox stuff, the newer stuff, it just keeps getting better and better, and is much more usable. So, Wet Dry Wet sounds like fun, man. That's cool.
Well, I love my effects. I love creating my various depths with delays on stage, be they ping pongs or slaps or really deeply modulated delays or tape type delays. It really makes a difference, and I enjoy creating those different depths and distances and characteristics while I'm playing. So I'm doing a big old tap dance all the time when I'm on stage, but I'm used to it, and it's a lot of fun because I'm creating the sound that I'm hearing in my head. I'm not relying on the sound man to do it. I can be very flexible and very creative at all times, and interestingly enough, with the Monkees, the other guitar player who's been their MD for the longest time, a guy named Wayne Avers, he's very meat and potatoes. It's like a distortion, a little delay, and then right into the amp, and that's it, you know. And he his tones are so immediate and so present in the role of straight rhythm guitar that it's really fun for me to create these delayed Leslie phaser vibrato wild sort of textural tones that complement his more meat and potatoes sort of thing. So it works very well as a partnership.
Very cool. Nice one. Christian, can we go back? You mentioned this is the first time you've been on stage with your dad doing these shows over the last, best part of 10 years, I guess. But tell me about growing up and getting into music. I guess it's hard for you to imagine it any other way, of course, but what impact did it have growing up, the son of a Monkee?
The son of the Monkee thing is less impactful than one might think. I mean, it certainly had opportunities, and but it also created some hurdles because I was immediately associated with my dad and not from my own work quite often. But the growing up part was wonderful only because we had an entire wall full of vinyl. And I could listen to any of it that I wanted to and did. So my influences and my exposure was right from the beginning. And, I'm sure that I heard a Beatles song within the first 48 hours of my life. Both my mom and dad were massive Beatles fans, and they were massive Bob Dylan fans, and Hendrix came along very, very shortly after that, and they were all blown away. And that's one of my earliest memories is sitting on the floor looking at the being still about 2 years old, listening to "Are You Experienced" and just looking at that crazy cover with Hendrix with that top on,
that's awesome,
with the eyeballs on it.
Yeah.
And so that was wonderful. I was always exposed to all kinds of music. My dad being Texan, there's a huge Texas blues and country flavor that I was raised around. I also love classical music. I also love incredible world music, particularly Indian classical music. I think it's just so amazing and hypnotic. So the exposure to music, because he was already a working musician, was definitely beneficial. And later on, it was just that, it was do your homework, that kind of stuff.
Cool.
So,
that's awesome though, that broad listening. When you started picking up a guitar, what sort of things were you listening to and gravitating towards?
Well, my first instrument was piano. And I have a pretty vivid memory about 5 years old of my dad teaching me how to play Heart and Soul on the piano, and both parts, the melody and the rhythm, so I could play either side, and from then on it immediately unlocked for me. I got it. It was like, oh, I see what's going on here. This is cool. And with a little bit of lessons when I was in second grade, I was able to see my way pretty clearly into music and the way it's laid out, and why certain notes are valuable in certain applications and others are in others. And so my ear was very open, very turned on right from the get-go. But I think some of the early, I loved Kiss just when I was a little kid, before I could play. So it's full on air guitar and jumping off the bed and woohoo, as a 10-year-old kid listening to Kiss.
Yes, absolutely.
But I was also, I think I remember my dad, yet again, my dad, turning me on to Led Zeppelin Presence. I think was the one that he said, here, check this out. As a matter of fact, just as an aside, he was the guy who handed me my first King's X record, which was Gretchen Goes to Nebraska.
Okay.
He says, here, check these guys out.
Wow.
And so, so he definitely turned me on to a lot of stuff. And then I just found my way into, I guess hard rock was my first love. That great 70s Zeppelin, Aerosmith, Rush, Deep Purple, and even Ted Nugent, if he weren't such a but his early songs were really cool. And so that was the seminal stuff. But then I also, Eddie Van Halen came down the pike, and I learned, every song I possibly could off the first 4 records. And,
awesome.
And so it was, that Randy Rhoads and Michael Schenker and every pretty much hard blues based hard rocker that you can think of, that was the guy. Those were the guys for me. Neil Schon was huge. I loved Brian May, and Pat Travers was a big one for me. And so as soon as I got my first pretty workable guitar, I had a junky sort of pawn shop special that I wound up taking that thing completely apart. I mean, down to unwinding the pickups. Okay, that's how apart I took it, because I wanted to see how it was made. Yeah. So.
And did you put it back together?
But no way. It was done. But my next kind of workable guitar was a Seville Les Paul copy, and that's really that's the guitar I did all my learning on, and so to this day, Les Paul, even though I'm using the other instruments, Les Paul is my first and greatest love of a guitar.
Mm-hmm.
And so those were the folks. And then as it started becoming more flashy, I loved guys like Steve Morse and Steve Vai and I don't know, all those wheedlers, all those crazy guys. So huge influence. There's not many. If they're playing good, I like them.
Sure,
so there
sure.
You go.
Nice.
Billy Gibbons. Can't not mention Billy Gibbons.
Yeah.
There you go.
Very cool. Very cool. It's interesting you mentioned all these rock players, but also growing up listening to the Beatles, because I've been playing your most recent solo album, The Other Side, and man, it just struck me almost immediately. It's such a great mix of really heavy, thick textures, great guitar playing, but really in really clever power pop kind of tunes. So that stuck out.
Well, the Beatles were, were always there. It's almost, you don't mention the Beatles because, duh, of course everybody listens to the Beatles. Of course that's one of them. But I know that's not really the truth. But they were way more of an inspiration to me as songwriters.
Mm-hmm.
And, to sit down with an acoustic guitar and unravel the chord changes to, I'm So Tired, or Strawberry Fields, or Here, There, and Everywhere, or some of these deeper chord changes, which nobody had really used in popular music up until then. I mean, not in a rock and roll sort of way. You had your 50s sort of slick crooners, and they had all very, very nice deep, but those are more big band and jazz bass to take thicker chords or odd angular chord changes. And Strawberry Fields is an incredible example of just listen to the chorus and go ahead and just go figure those chords out. They're weird, and those guys really had a knack for digging in deeper, and that had a big effect on me. So I'm glad that you noticed that I was chasing that wonderful little angel of writing when I do it on my own work.
The guitar parts on the record too are fantastic. You are a master of overdubbing and still keeping a lot of clarity. You've done a bunch of engineering. Has that influenced the way you track guitars in any way?
Yeah, I wish I was better at getting one guitar to really to fill up the track. I'm not very good at that. I feel like I just want more. I love the sound of doubled stereo, and even like a stereo with a different tone up the middle, and that's something I'll do quite often in hard rock sounds. But yeah, I am admittedly a layerer. I love just stacking them up until you get something that is, I don't know if the sum is greater than the parts, but hopefully it is something different than the parts. So that I've created a tone that nobody really has, and that's what I'm after. You mentioned the record, The Other Side. That's my second solo record. The first one, which is called An Axe to Grind, is far more hard rock and chasing that sort of flash wheedly guitar guy.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
But that also has massive layers as well.
Yeah, cool. When you talk about crafting new tones, there was one tone I couldn't crack it. It was on Queen of Broken Hearts. I don't know if you remember crafting that tone. It's kind of clean. It's kind of
that one actually
wall.
It's not though. Ironically, me saying that I don't get a lot of songs that come down to a single guitar. That is, it might be doubled, but I know that the bulk of it is just a massively compressed 12-string.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's just striking those chords, and I wanted to have almost an on and off switch, almost like it was sliced or edited sound.
Yeah.
And so when I stumbled on those chords, it sounded really cool, but I wanted to have more of a rhythmic, again, as if it were gated or actually, digitally sliced on and off, but it was just played that way. And then the compression on there, which is just, a billion to one compression, just smashed to hell. Really lends for that. It almost sounds like some weird keyboard or something, but it's just an electric 12-string, just crushed to death.
Awesome, man. That's great. That's a great tone. Christian, tell me about the record you're making with Circe Link, your wife that you've mentioned.
Well, that's a loaded question because we've got 12 of them.
Yeah.
And they've definitely had an arc. We've been together for 17 years, and we've been making music that entire time. And when we first started out, we met because she was looking for. Actually, we met because she was looking for a pedal steel player, which I did not play. So I turned her on to a few names that I knew. But then she came back around and said, I want you to check this stuff out. And she was working with another guy. But I could immediately tell that she had the goods, that her songwriting and that her melodic sense and lyrical sense, and as a vocalist as well, was the real deal. And then so we met, and then hi, by the way, you're beautiful too. Okay, so I don't think I'm gonna let you out of my sight anymore. But we immediately started making music together, and I think if you were to call it stylistically, at the beginning, it was something you might call cowboy jazz, stuff that is pretty much all acoustic based, and giving big nods to things like Bob Wills, the Texas Playboys, and early 50s country, and that, but with a nice jazzy swing to it. But that definitely evolved over time, and we looked into other areas. And so our second to last record, which is called Bird's Amazing Odyssey and the Meaning of Tea, it couldn't be any further from writing wise or sonically than we could get from the original albums. And it's, the writing is very Harry Nilsson inspired. Mm-hmm. So completely different world. But because we're a mom and pop operation, we're not on a label. We have a studio here in our home. We have no limits. We have no rules. It's just whatever we're hearing at the time. And there's a huge backlog of stuff that's never made it to a record, only because that doesn't sound like anything like the record we're making right now. So maybe we'll just leave that one off and keep it on the back burner. As a matter of fact, the folder is called Back Burner.
Okay. That is great. Christian, you've built a career doing so many different things. So the albums with Circe, as you've said, it's a mum and pop. It's fiercely independent, and that's fantastic because you get to do what you want. You've also done television commercials. You've done scores, film placements. It seems like you've built a career on your terms. What's your advice for guitar players trying to make a living in the current climate?
Well, I don't want to sound pessimistic, because that's not what this is about. But what I would say is, don't go into it wanting to be a rock star. I suppose that, God, where do I want to go with this? I suppose that, I don't want to step on anybody's dreams, because, when we're kids, we see our rock stars, and of course we want to emulate them, and they inspire us, and look at the lights and listen to the big amplifiers, and, that's great. But the amount of people that actually wind up being rock stars is so few and far between. However, if you do learn how to play your instrument, and you do learn more than one style of playing, and you do investigate incredible eclectic types of music, that can benefit you, and you wind up being the guy that gets called for anything. I remember one of my very first commercial sessions. I had to do 2 different commercials in one day, and I was called in by a buddy of mine, and the way the commercials worked, they had a temporary track on there that the producers liked, but you had to sort of copy and turn on its ear, and then but not get sued, right? And so the 2 temps that I had on that first day. One was Marilyn Manson, and the other was Chet Atkins.
There you go.
Yeah, and I was able to land both of those, and they came out great.
Nice.
And it was only because that I had dug into so many different types of music.
Sure.
That I was able to call on that vocabulary. So I say, learn your craft, learn theory, and that's not necessarily dots on a page, but why does an A minor to F sound like that? That sounds. Why does every single hard rock band now use that change? Which makes me crazy, of course. But why? You know what I mean?
I hear.
Why? But what is what is the emotional value of this chord change versus that chord change? How does that solo go? Why did he play it? Learn a billion different solos to the point where you have so much to call on that you can just all of a sudden you're improvising. It's like, oh yeah, I can borrow that little Jimmy Page lick, and I got that little Eddie Van Halen riff, and but now I'm going to throw in a big jazz chord in the middle of it, and you become you. And that those are the guys who they may never have been heard of, but they get to make their living making music, whether it's in a club or a studio or small tours or working with somebody else. Or I am so blessed to make my living with a guitar in my hands. It's insane. And if I must wag my finger for a moment, those who complain when they're on the road or they're musicians and like, oh, my amp doesn't sound good. Oh, I'm so tired. I'm on the road. Shut up. You get to play guitar for a living, dude. Shut up. So that's what I have to say. That and you got to learn to be. Learn to be humble and grateful. Be the nice guy. Be the guy who everybody can count on. And those are hard lessons to learn, particularly when you're trying to be a rock star. Look at me, look at me, look at me. But
sure.
But if you're the guy who says, yeah, man, Christian can play, let's call him.
Yeah, great.
And they did, and they do. So it's nice.
Fantastic.
And I'm very, very grateful for that.
Very good advice, Christian. Thank you so much. And, mate, thank you for your time. It's been great speaking to you. We really look forward to the tour coming up with the Monkees. And, enjoy the Opera House and all of the other venues.
Yeah, I certainly will. I'm very excited. Also, while I'm there, I've got to pet a kangaroo. So I'll just tell you that right now.
No problem. They're everywhere.
What?
They're just hopping down the road.
They are everywhere, aren't they? No, actually, when I was I had been down there before, and when was in Melbourne, we had a day off, and we were able to go to this wild animal park just outside the city, and it was just kangaroos just roaming everywhere. No zookeepers, no big fences. They're just 6-foot reds, just like hopping up to you saying, hey, give me some food. But it's true, but they were cool. And to your listeners, if you want to check out my stuff, christiannesmith.com. If you want to check out a lot more, Circe Link, that's CIRCELINK, circelink.com. I've made much more music that's available with her than I have on my own. And you also can check both of our YouTube channels. We've got like 100 videos out there of all kinds of different stuff, some proper made, some just sitting on the couch. And then just be on the lookout because King's X is coming down there, and I'm happy to promote them. I know they're going down there soon. And then, of course, I'm coming down with the Mike and Mickey show, the Monkees, for a bunch of dates all across the country. So I'm really looking forward to it, and I really appreciate you talking to me so that I can tell all your listeners about it.
That's great. Thank you so much. Yeah, man, I loved it. So thanks for your time. It's been a great conversation. And
all right, brother.
Lots of good stuff to check out. All right. Thanks, Christian. We'll talk soon. We'll talk again.
Okay, bud. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
All right, there you go. My conversation with Christian Nesmith. That was really cool. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. And please check out the links in our show notes relating to that upcoming tour of Australia and New Zealand by the Monkees. Of course, there are dates in other nations as well, so check out your local guides. Okay, before I go, just a reminder, head over to guitarspeakpodcast.com. Over there you can get all of our links to our social media, or how to subscribe to the show, or how to get in touch, how to buy a t-shirt. By the way, I'm coming up with a better way for our US friends to buy a Guitar Speak podcast t-shirt. So stay tuned for that. I'll let you know how that goes. Okay, time for me to get out of here. My name's Matt Wakeling. You've been listening to the Guitar Speak podcast. I'll catch you next time. Bye now.